The following is an original production of AZPM News.
For AZPM, I'm Mark McLemore, and this is Arizona Spotlight. Coming up, when you listen to Tucson, what do you hear? That was the question asked on Friday, June 26th, when AZPM held a special event at our new home, the Paul and Alice Baker Center for Public Media. It was a live before an audience taping of Arizona Spotlight. Coming up, you'll hear a poem from Logan Phillips, a story from UA grad and one-time Olympic hopeful Jenica Bosco, and an interview with author, playwright, and musician Alejandro Canelos. That's next on this special live edition of Arizona Spotlight. First up, we invited Tucson's poet laureate Logan Phillips to perform an original piece about what he hears a little too often in Tucson.
Good evening. Very happy to be here, y'all. Thank you for coming. So the prompt was the sounds of Tucson. So here's a brand new poem for you. It's called Ode to the Man with Loud Pipes. I hear you. Yes, I hear you. As you drive by my house at 3 p.m., at 7 a.m., at 10 a.m., and 1 in the morning. Oh yes, your car, it's loud. Which I guess you know since you spent hundreds of dollars to make it so, which now I know after thinking for years, what the heck is wrong with that car? So thank you for teaching me about the cosmetic car mechanics industry. And so I'd like to share with you some words that you taught me while writing this poem for you. Car exhaust whistle, universal turbo, sound booster, aluminum alloy, car roar maker, muffle pipe whistle, vehicle blow-off valve, tip stimulator, tail whistler, add to cart, exhaust sound system, turbo exhaust pipe. Oh, yes, man, and of course you're a man with the loud pipes. But I must confess, I have cursed you. As you fart on by my open window, stopping conversation, but who am I to judge? In high school, I lusted after a bright yellow 2001 Nissan Xterra. And only by the grace of my dad saying, hell no, was I not driving around like that. So I understand being somewhere between a learner's permit and a fully developmentally complete prefrontal cortex, thinking that a Honda Civic with a mismatched hood and a bondoed back is a chariot, and driving, another name for freedom, spreading your spoiler to fly. Thinking that any attention is good attention, any sound a song, that your roar makes you more as you crop dust my neighborhood, a comet of carcinogenic cologne and raspberry vape juice, listening to whatever today's equivalent of Limp Bizkit is. Dear man who wants to know he's a man via his very loud car, you know what they say, the louder the car, the mightier the man. Oh wait, actually nobody says that. What we say is, oh, shut up, as we spend our breath cursing you, which I guess you also enjoy. And so I wish you luck in your dream of becoming an F-35 fighter pilot, so that even American schools have to pause educating our children when you pass by, so that the rest of the globe will pay attention to you, not knowing if yours is the last sound they will ever hear. In a world filled with so much noise, you are truly more noise. A world where you've been taught that survival of the loudest is to silence the quietest parts of yourself. Oh man, your car is loud, but it is up to me to decide what I hear in you. For I don't know the pain you are in, but I know you are in pain. And not just because your car sounds like the death wail of an animal. Your loud pipes have become part of my spiritual practice of finding the silence beneath the freeway, of loving this world even for its damage, of knowing who my friends are, who my enemies are, and how to treat them accordingly. Oh man, you are not my friend. But oh, you are even less my enemy in this world of profitable suffering, where we're both just trying to get where we're going. So thank you for this poem, where I can also share with you the mantra that I chant every time you blow by, and it's an extended prayer bell. I say, I'm sorry you feel so deeply unheard. I'm sorry you feel so deeply unheard. That all you've been given to express yourself is an inefficient hunk of earth-killing metal and a grid system. That you were taught inconveniencing your community is the only rebellion there is, that freedom is individualism, autonomy, the ability to annoy. And I'm sorry the only conversation that we can have is middle fingers and trigger fingers, signs of our grasping towards parts of ourselves missing. I am no better than you up here on this microphone. And so what I wish for you is what I wish for myself, and it is this. I wish for you to trust the quietest parts of yourself, to find the love capable of holding your smallest secrets, to release that pain which makes you feel you need to prove yourself to a world that has not been able to hear you. You ring the bell at 3, at 7, at 10, at 1, and I chant, may the next world hear each of us, hold each of us. May I hear underneath your sound that love that you are calling for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Logan. Really glad you came tonight. Well, that was fun. There used to be a motorcycle up the street from me, and I used to think, where's this guy going all day? Like, I don't go anywhere. And like Logan is saying, you know, every 2 hours, boom, he's off somewhere. Now he's coming back. Anyway, my name is Mark McLemore. I've been hosting Arizona Spotlight since the late 50s, actually. It's been quite a while. And I'm really happy to see so many people out there today. And I'm really happy to know that you are interested enough in what we're doing tonight, which we're making up as we go along largely, to come and see. After the show, in fact, we'll be around in the lobby, the guests and I. If you want to come up and say anything to any of us, we would love to speak with you. So I like the idea of Tucson is listening, but I don't know if we always are listening enough. But I think when we each listen to Tucson as individuals, we each hear something different. And so we had these cards out front, and a lot of you filled them out. Thank you so much for doing that. And then if the person who wrote it wants to take the credit for it, they're welcome to do so. What do you hear when you listen to Tucson? The floor creaking at Time Market. This one says, I hear a community song. I hear many voices coming together, and it creates a beautiful symphony. That's nice. It says, I listen to the birds that gather in my palm trees in the backyard, the souped up cars, where have we heard about that before? Cruising down the streets, and my neighbor's dogs barking hello when I take my dog for a walk. I hear a vibrant community that celebrates the many cultures that make up our city. When I asked this question before of a group of people, I remember one of the answers that I got was, I hear the voices of the ancestors. This person wrote truth. This person wrote coyotes and the wind, which makes me think maybe you camp out a lot. This one says NPR. You're really trying to butter us up. I like that. Thanks. Cicadas and culture. So much chatter about the weather when it's really only one season all year long. Frowny face. Well, I want to thank everyone for filling these out. We're going to put a few of them online. All right, well, if our first storyteller, Jenica, if you're ready. I've got them all warmed up now. You've got them in the palm of your hand. Now, Jenica and I have never met. Temna on our team invited her to come tonight to tell a story, and we're happy she's here. All right, Jenica Bosco, everyone.
Hi, everyone. And I first want to give a little background on my story. I'm a Tucson native born in 2002 to South Sudanese refugee parents who arrived in the U.S. shortly after 9/11. Growing up, I didn't question my circumstances, living in low-income housing, relying on government benefits, and leaning on community support were simply what life looked like. One of my clearest memories is sitting in the car with my mom as she studied civics questions on tape for a citizenship test. By age 6, I probably could have passed it myself, but today, not so sure. Watching my parents become citizens taught me early on what it truly means to belong in this country. That foundation shaped everything I did. As a kid, I was always athletic, and the passion eventually led me to track and field. It was my dear friend Rosa Sagarin who encouraged me to run in college, even when I was terrified of the cost. I took the leap and earned a 4-year scholarship to the University of Arizona. There I graduated with a degree in anthropology and a minor in sociology, served as team captain, earned second team All-American honors, and then competed at the 2024 Olympic trials. Thank you. Thank you. On the track, I learned that perseverance through fear isn't just about finishing a race, it's about showing up lap after lap, even when you doubt yourself. After college, I joined the Escachita Refugee Network, eager to give back to Tucson's refugee community. I thought my background gave me all the insight I needed, but I quickly realized I'd only scratched the surface. I didn't truly understand the urgency behind employment, benefits, integration, or housing, the very systems my parents had navigated in silence. That awakening gave me a much deeper appreciation for the quiet strength. And now I want to advocate for refugees not from a place of knowing it all, but from a place of learning and listening. So I share my story to show that perseverance, even through fear, can lead to success, just as it did for my parents and just as it did on the track. So given that background, when I listen to Tucson, I don't just hear the chirps of our desert wildlife. I hear the hum of many communities, all trying to help one another in their ways. I hear celebration and sadness, vulnerability and resilience. I view time passing here in the Sonoran Desert in phases, much like seasons, except we only really have 2 seasons in Tucson, so try saying that 5 times. I was born in the winter, which is ironic because I despise cold weather. Yet I love winters here because I hear togetherness. Whether it's around a burning fire, while others sing hymns from their homes, or people gathering for each other's warmth, sharing community through food, music, or movement. In spring, I hear the buzz of newborn wildlife alongside newborn plans, ideas, and goals, the energy of those preparing for new beginnings. In summer, I hear the early birds followed by the laughter of those on summer break, enjoying extra time with friends, families, pets, and loved ones. And finally, fall. You won't hear leaves falling as nature prepares for winter, but I hear the shuffles of students going back to school, the sound of traffic building up again, the music from the drop top driving down the street with passengers singing along, enjoying the cool breeze. And beneath it all, the calm white noise of my home, the Sonoran Desert. That's what I hear when I listen to Tucson, not just a place, but a rhythm, one that carries my parents' journey, my own strides on the track, and the voices of everyone striving to belong. Thank you.
It's lovely. Nice to meet you. And that's the best part about my job, is meeting somebody like Jenica that I had no idea shared this city, and hearing her individual story. It's beautiful. There was something I was going to say. You have heard me on the radio, but I'm not used to being seen. So I think that's really what's happening here. So if you wouldn't mind finding a fixed point somewhere, there's some speakers up there, and just watch that. And everything is going to go a lot nicer. So Alejandro Canelos would like to join me on stage. Alejandro, what do you hear when you listen to Tucson?
When I listen to Tucson, first and foremost, I hear woodpeckers. Gila woodpeckers. The single squawk, the double squawk, the triple squawk. Hammering on metal or wood, which sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'm like, it's got to be in the house. It sounds like it's in the house, that squawk. And, you know, it never puts me in a bad mood. I love woodpeckers so much. Whenever I hear that squawk, it puts a spring in my step. I also hear, related to woodpeckers, I hear the whistling of the wind through the spines of saguaro cactuses. You know, every saguaro has its own unique set of organization of spines. And so in my mind, every saguaro has its own sound signature of when that air comes through those spines. And it's a special frequency the saguaros have that they can hear loudly, and the woodpeckers hear. That's why they make their burrows behind the sound to get away from the sound. It's not something that we can normally hear, but they communicate in this way, the saguaros do. And I hear it.
Well, unfortunately, today we spoke earlier, and you told me about a severe loss that happened to the Tucson arts community, particularly our theatrical community. A beautiful person who gave back in so many ways to the people around her. And I wonder if you'd like to say a few words about your friend.
Yeah, my good friend and associate Dawn McMillan passed away a few weeks ago. And it's a terrible loss for the theater community. She was a wonderful actress, singer, director, worked with just about every theater in town and with so many other artists. And it was sudden and tragic, and she is missed, and it leaves a huge void in our community. And I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, the first time I met her, I was meeting the cast of Winnie the Pooh at the Scoundrel and Scamp Theater, and they were all in full dress rehearsal costumes. And I was sitting on a paper mache wooden stump, talking to Eeyore and Rabbit, and I suddenly realized I was in the 100-Acre Wood, and I thought, man, I've always wanted to be here. It was beautiful, and I'm a pretty emotional person, and it just washed over me, and I got very verklempt, as some people would say. Before I knew it, there was this woman standing in front of me, and she was silhouette from the back with the stage lights. So they were like shining through her hair, and she had this beautiful Donna Reed hairdo and a apron and everything. But she was also a kangaroo, right? Because she was playing Kanga in Winnie the Pooh. And she said to me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. I'm really fine." I found out later that Dawn, in her day job, was a therapist, and she could tell. So that image has always stayed with me. That magical Donna Reed kangaroo floating in front of me, asking if I was okay. Well, moving on, I guess I want to bring up the Neotenant Queen, which I believe we have a slide for. Yeah, this was the first book of yours that I read. And I was fascinated with it because I guess I've always, like Winnie the Pooh might indicate, I've always kind of liked anthropomorphized animals. Watership Down was a watershed moment in my life to read that book. And you look at the lives, the sort of secret lives of animals that call Arizona their home or the Southwest, and reveal that they're just as neurotic and messed up as everybody else. And it was quite moving. It was funny. It was sad. It was challenging. Tell us a little bit about what went into creating the Neotenant Queen and why you would choose to go in that direction.
So I was writing short fiction, and I wrote a story about a rattlesnake who climbs a tree. And I didn't really understand why he climbed the tree until I realized that he climbed the tree in order to get a different point of view. And I did a little bit of research and found out that rattlesnakes do, in fact, climb trees. And there are theories about maybe they're going up there to get food, but in my mind, rattlesnakes climb trees to get a different point of view because they actually have pretty decent eyesight. And I did a lot of research on rattlesnakes and found out that they have familiar relationships. They stay close to their siblings and parents as they grow older. And these are things that weren't known about rattlesnakes until recently, and I ended up writing a story about this rattlesnake and about a rattlesnake who tries to become friends with a man and get past this historic enmity between serpent and man that's gone on for all of time as we know it. And then I wrote a story about a male black widow who didn't understand why he couldn't have an hourglass painted on his abdomen. And he heard about a black widow who was a famous artist, a female black widow who had painted over her hourglass. And so he goes to her and says, "Will you paint this on me?"
Wasn't it berry juice? Was the medium?
Yes, exactly. Juice from a berry, yes. It was used as the paint. And then I wrote a story about saguaro cactuses, and I realized I'm writing a story actually about the flora and fauna of the Sonoran Desert. And I ended up with 25 stories. And there are stories about bats and about javelinas and about woodpeckers, of course, and saguaro cactuses. And one of my favorites, the most interesting plants we have here is the desert mistletoe and the birds that eat the seeds and spread them around. I ended up with a collection of stories because every one of these animals and plants wakes up every day, or if they're nocturnal, they wake up every night, and they need to survive, and hopefully they're going to procreate. And I realized that they're just like us. We want somebody to love, and we want to leave something behind when we go. And ultimately, for me, the collection became not how are they like us, meaning these animals and plants, but how is it that we are like them and we have the same kinds of cares and worries and fears that they have on a daily basis.
You mentioned the story about saguaro, and I really still think about that a lot because most of us and most artists, when they look at a saguaro, they find it noble. You know, they see dignity, they see grace, they see power. It's not exactly what you depicted because of the idea that they're sessile and therefore even more so than rattlesnakes, they can't change their point of view. And long-lived, right? Because how long does a saguaro live? That they actually had a very competitive alpha male construct in their society. Where was it that you thought about the idea of beings who couldn't necessarily see each other because of hills and other obstacles, but instead spend all day shouting at each other?
My wife is an attorney, and one of her previous jobs was she was a federal public defender in the Capital Habeas Unit, which meant that all of her clients were on death row. And she used to explain to me what it was like at the Supermax prison, which said every inmate has their own cell, and they might see the inmate across from them, or they might see an inmate walking by occasionally, but essentially the only way they have to communicate with all of each other is through shouting. Through these inmates shouting at each other, not being able to see each other, but shouting, a social hierarchy develops, and there's actually comes to be a boss who the other inmates follow. And so I applied this to saguaros. And there's, in my story called Still Standing, there's a saguaro named Handy Andy who doesn't like it when other saguaros disobey him or show disrespect. And the way that saguaros punish one another is the same way that these inmates punish one another in prison, and that is you get the silent treatment. So if the only way you have to communicate with the people in your social circle is by sound, and they all decide because the boss says, don't talk to this person anymore. It's a form of solitary confinement, actually. So if
You'll get
not
shouted
being
out.
talked to,
You'll get shouted over.
you get shouted over if you tried to talk, and you get ignored if you tried to listen. And unfortunately, saguaros live so long that Handy Andy could put somebody in this form of solitary confinement for decades. And it's extremely cruel.
And there's one saguaro who wants so badly to communicate and say something, but when he finally, maybe 100 years later, gets the opportunity, it's hard for him to remember what it is he wanted to say.
Exactly.
Before we move on, Alejandro, tell us about the illustrator for your book.
Her name is Rachel Ivani. I found her. She is a instructor out at the Desert Museum, a nature artist, wonderful nature artist. And she's also a biologist herself, so I was able to use her as a consultant for some of my stories in the book. And she ended up doing 25 watercolor paintings for this book that are in black and white in the paperback, but actually the ebook, there's color art for all of it, and she did a wonderful job. I really enjoyed working with her.
Well, one of the things we've worked on for radio is radio drama, because everybody loves radio drama, right? I mean, the kids these days. Anyway, we worked on a few of your short plays, 10-minute dramas, in fact, and had those on the show. And I'm curious, as we talk about this part of your career, I know there are very different things, but how would you compare fiction writing with being a playwright?
I wrote and published 3 collections of short stories, and I like to keep my stories stories short, between
Short story.
7 and 10 pages.
Love it.
It's just the art form that I prefer. And then I thought, you know what, I love the stage, and I heard about 10-minute play festivals, and I thought, I'm just going to take my short story writing approach and apply it to the stage. And so I wrote 2 collections of 10-minute plays, one for adults and one for children.
In closing, tell people what you've got going on with Invisible Theater.
So out of 10-minute dramas, 8 of them are going to be performed as a full night of theater at Invisible Theater, July 23rd through July 26th. 8 of the 10-minute dramas. It's a cast of 4, and they're playing all the roles. Half will be directed by Betsy Cruz Craig. Half will be directed by Carrie Cole, who's coming in from Minnesota, a friend of Invisible Theater, and we're really excited about it.
Okay, well, Alejandro Canelos, thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I've enjoyed our collaborations, and I look forward to more.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Arizona Spotlight. The show is a production of AZPM and is posted weekly at azpm.org. Helping out with this live event were my AZPM colleagues Timna Gershon, Karina Mendoza, Sean Teague, Clarice Bales, Greg Gutierrez, Steve McMacklin, plus news director David Lee and AZPM reporters Tony Paniagua and Laura Holansky. Spotlight's production engineer is Jim Blackwood. I'm producer and host Mark McLemore.
This has been an original production of AZPM News.